What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Drop in the Gloves, another episode. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Milan Lucic is here. He's my favorite player in the NHL right now. Absolutely love the guy. He's in Mexico right now, so we don't want to waste any time, Tim. We want to get down to the meat and potatoes, so I'm going to jump into it. First, Milan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, why are you joining us from Mexico? Are you just that good of a guy? Because I would have been like, beat it. I'm not doing anything
Well,
on vacation.
you asked, so I said yes. So, you ask and
Hey,
you receive.
I love that. We don't ask too many people. And I tell you what, I really appreciate you saying yes, first of all. But let's just jump into it. We have a history, you and I. I got a job strictly because of you being who you are. You are a physical player. I was, kind of in and out of maybe the NHL specter at that point, coming off my first stint with the Minnesota Wild, I believe. And then you decided to run my good friend of the show, Ryan Miller. Like the animal that you are, out of control. Why would you do that to my good friend? First of all, let's answer that question right off the bat.
You know what? Honestly, I was on a breakaway and I hit the puck too far. And I was literally skating as fast as I could to try to catch up with the puck.
Okay.
And I had zero intentions of hitting Ryan. And I said this before and I'll say it again, and this is the God honest truth. I looked up and he was still in his net. I looked up at the red line, he was still in his net. Then I looked back down at the puck. I looked up at the blue line, he was still at his net. And I looked down again. And then once I crossed the blue line, I looked up again and we were both at the slot. And I just braced myself after that. And me being 60, 70, 80 pounds heavier than him, he obviously got the worst of it, but that's the God honest truth. And
Okay.
I was trying to score a goal. I was not trying to hit a goalie. I was
So
trying to score a goal.
I'm not a detective, but I'm going to poke holes in your story here. So you say you lost the puck. How far out in front of it? Too far ahead of you.
I pushed the puck too far ahead of me. I think I blocked a Vanek shot.
Okay.
And I was chasing it down to try to get the breakaway. I was on an 8-game goal streak, but I was trying to keep my goal streak going. And yeah.
Because when I skate my fastest, I don't bury my head straight down, Milan. I look where I'm going.
Well, I told you I was looking at the puck.
Because we had Millsy on the show, and he's like, "Oh man, what an animal that Milan Lucic is. He's an absolute reckless," he said. Shouldn't have him in the game. But anyways, you hit him. Who cares?
That's his opinion.
It is what it is. You know what I mean?
It is what it is.
It was good for me because I got to sign a contract for 2 years in Boston or Buffalo with the strict. I was told we don't want that stuff to happen anymore. And we play you guys right away. And I go into Boston. I'm nervous. Like, I got to fight the big Looch. What was going on in the locker room? If you remember that far back, it was a long time ago. Do you remember the conversations that were happening in that room before that game? Because I was going to fight somebody. Why was it Mr. Thornton? What happened? What was the chatter before the game?
Well, the thing is like, we were all surprised that nothing happened that game when the hit on Ryan Miller happened.
Yeah.
And then, the next
game can we call it, sorry to cut you off, can we call it an attack on Ryan Miller?
You can call it that, sure. No, and then Gostad fought me first shift in Buffalo after that. But we were all kind of like surprised that nothing happened that game.
Yeah.
And then obviously they signed you after and whatnot. And and we were a tough team. And
yeah.
You know what? Like back then, you look 10 years ago, I think a lot of guys got jobs because of the makeup of our team.
Without a doubt.
You had Big Z, like you said, Sean Thornton, McQuaid, Nathan Horton, Johnny Boychuk, and then we had even the middle class taken care of with Ferentz and Gregory Campbell, and you know what, Seidenberg wasn't a guy that fought a lot, but he was also a big guy, and all that type of stuff. So like the makeup of our team, I think a lot of guys like yourself got jobs in the Eastern Conference, and especially in that what was the Northeast Division back then.
Yep.
And yeah, so we just talked, we talked about it, and Thordy was always a guy Thorny knew his role. There's a reason why Thorny played until he was 40 years old. There's not a lot of guys that do what they do like he does and play until they're 40 years old. And he slugged it. He slugged it out in the minors for 600 games before
That's
he even got a
amazing.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if anyone should get like if for guys that I've played with, he deserves as much credit as anyone for what he's done. Like he's played 1,200 games. I know they're not all NHL games, but I think he's the first guy to ever do 600 games in the A and then do 600 games in the NHL.
That's pretty amazing.
And he slugged it out, man. Like he did it in the late 90s, early 2000s. And so, you know what, when we were playing you guys and they added you to the team, his first thing is he came up to myself and said, I got the big boy tonight. And that's, you know, and that's what happened. And I still remember the fight because he got the worst of it. But, you know,
It was a good,
he,
well,
that,
it obviously was I won, but I was, got to commend the guy for stepping in there. But yeah,
yeah. And it didn't matter. Like I said, he understood his role. He understood what he was supposed to do. And I remember even when the Rangers signed Bugard,
hmm
first thing he did was fight Big Derek, and
hmm
you know, and he took it upon himself to do that. You know, nobody told him to do that. Nobody asked that of him. He did that himself. And to be honest, you know, I think a big reason why I was able to do what I did and be who I was because I had a guy like Sean Thornton with me, and he made the first, you know, my first whatever 60, 70 games before, you know, I moved up in the lineup, and he would always take care of what I called the super heavyweights back in the
yeah,
day, and then I took care of
normal
I guess
heavyweights.
the normal heavyweights, yeah, especially being 19 years old, and yeah, like he knows this more than anyone. I don't think I have the success that I have without having a guy like him um, on the team with me. So
And that kind
yeah,
of leads me to this. I was thinking about this, just kind of researching this and that, and people, well, why didn't he fight Larock? Why didn't he fight this and that? What, how strange was it? You're coming into this league and you already have this reputation the first 5, 10 games because you just came in so strong. You're beating guys up, you were scoring goals, you were just a revelation. How weird was it to be a 19-year-old kid getting challenged by these super heavyweights? They're going out of their way to just be like, let's go, let's go. It's like, what do they expect you to do? I felt bad for you watching all this stuff happening because I was watching I was playing in the league at that point. What was it like? Because you're just a kid and you're having these grown men, like, and you're a skill guy to boot, sort of. You're a power forward who are scoring goals.
yeah, it was kind of crazy. It was really crazy
Yeah.
because
You got George Larock chasing
yeah,
you around.
exactly. And I remember my second game or my third game was in Anaheim, and like Brad May and George Peros were foaming from the mouth, asking me to fight, and I'm like, and I remember I said this to him. I'm like, hey, I'm not ready for you guys yet. Like give me a break here. And then my fourth game, we were playing in LA. I laid a hit on Ivanis,
hmm
and he asked me to fight, and I fought Ivanis, and that was my fourth game in my career in LA. And honestly, like looking back to that, it was kind of crazy as a 19-year-old fighting a guy who was, you know, established 245 pounds, you
Six
know, big
six.
dude,
Yeah.
6'6". But I fought him, and I remember I think it was my last season with Boston, and I remember I had a meeting with Claude at one point, and Claude told me, he goes, if you didn't have that fight and showed that you could hang with a guy like him, we would have sent you back to junior. So it was one of those things where honestly, the reason why I made every team that I made was because of fighting.
Yeah.
And like you said, and then like you just said, like I was a skill guy as well. So I could score, I could make plays and all that type of stuff. But I never made a team because of my abilities. It was
Yeah.
always, okay, we're gonna take this guy because he's tough
Yeah.
and he's gonna protect guys. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh wait, he can play too. But the reason why I made a junior B team, the Delta Ice Hawks, was because I could fight. And the reason why I made the junior A team, the Coquitlam Express, was because I could fight. And then I made the WHL was because I could fight. And then my my playing came
Yeah.
after. And see, this is the thing too. Like, I know there's all these rules in major junior now, limiting fighting and all that type of stuff. Like, but I look back at my career, I would not have made any team if it wasn't for fighting. I would not have got drafted if it wasn't for fighting. I would not have made the NHL if it wasn't for fighting. People don't know, like, so I remember, so you know the junior thing, you play 10 games, you stay for the whole season.
Yeah.
And then I think I played 5 preseason games that year. And I fought 7 times in
Wow.
those 15 games. 7, like,
Yeah.
and if I didn't fight those 7 times, I would not have been an NHL hockey player. You get what I'm trying to say?
Oh no,
So,
without a doubt. Yeah.
and I know some people can have their views and say what they want about fighting, but for me, if it wasn't for my whole point to all this, if it wasn't for fighting, I would not be where I am today, sitting at a resort in Mexico.
You'd be sitting in northern
I'd
British
probably be a
Columbia.
long no, I'd probably be a longshoreman in Vancouver like the rest of my buddies. So you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
no, I know.
yeah,
Now
so,
to
and that's
piggyback
and
off of that. Oh, go ahead.
this is the reason why I wanted to come on the show with you, is because you know what, it like fighting has made my hockey life. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I've never hated it. I've always loved it. I've never been one of those guys that gets anxiety, or you know how guys talk, oh, they have like,
Mm-hmm.
they almost feel like they want to throw up or anything like that because they
Mm-hmm.
know, they're going to probably get into a fight like that. I've never had that.
No
And
kidding.
I fought 60 times in junior. 60 times in 3 years of junior I fought.
Man, that's
And
crazy.
the thing was, is you look back at the dub back in that day, like there were guys that were 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", 235, 230, 240 pounds, and these are kids that I was fighting in junior. So if it wasn't guys like them, like I was fighting, I fought Fraser McLaren 3 times. There was this one, Olson, he was 6'5", 230. Aaron Bugard fought, like, so there were some big boys back in the day in the dub.
Yeah.
And I've never said thank you to any of them, but thank you to them because they got me ready for, the NHL, because I could hang on, I could hold my own with those guys, Matt Cassian.
Mm-hmm.
I held my own with those guys. And if it wasn't for them, I don't know if I could have held my own with the guys that I ended up fighting in the NHL.
Well, it would have taken you a lot longer, and then you would have been cut. You would have been beat
Yeah.
up and stuff. So I knew when I fought like Steve McIntyre, a guy from the dub who's been in a million fights. I'm like, this guy, like he's already done it. He's been there, done that for 4 years in the dub, and the guy's an absolute just like pro fighter. It's wild. I want to ask you this, Luch. Has there been a time in your career, you mentioned how you got to fight to kind of gain your spot, then you can bring the skills in after that? I felt that way too, where I couldn't really focus on hockey until I established myself, get fighting. Fighting kind of made me comfortable. Then I can go, okay, I'm on the team now. I can play a little more. Has there been a time in your, 15 years now, Bruins, LA, Edmonton, Calgary, where you lost that? Where you mentally were like, I'm a skill guy now. I don't have to worry about that. Or have you always had that mentality?
I've always had the mentality of of playing, like,
Mm-hmm.
so. And the thing is like every game I go into, I've always gone into a game prepared to fight. I've always gone into a game prepared to score. I've always gone into a game prepared to hit.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you don't have it every night. You know,
Mm-hmm.
there's times where you're just like, oh, but like as bad as that sounds, but
Oh
you know
no,
what,
it's honest. Yeah.
but you got to find it. And for me, you know, I played for Don Hay in junior, and he taught me to bring that every night and to be that animal every night. And he, I remember he had meetings with me. Like I remember, I think I had so we played a 3-3 the one weekend, and I had 6 goals and 1 assist. So I had 7 points in 3 games, but I didn't have a fight, and I won Player of the Week. And Don Hayes sits me down in the meeting on the Monday, and he goes, "You think you're a goal scorer now? You're never going to make it anywhere thinking that you're going to go score goals. You think you're going to play like that and make it to the NHL? You better bring it." So I'm going, what, like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I thought I just had an unbelievable weekend,
That's
Player of the Week, and
funny.
this guy sits me down and goes, you know, you didn't hit anyone, you didn't fight anyone. So he inbred that in me that I had to, you know, bring that every single night. So what do I do the next Friday? Next Friday for a second shift, what do? I get in a fight, because and but you know what? He never left me off the hook. He never let me off the hook. He
Hmm.
was all over me all the time, and all the time. Even every time I did well, he would always bring me back down.
That's
And
funny.
like I said, but he inbred that mentality that you're talking about, that I had to bring it every night. And then I went from Dawn to Claude, and Claude was just as hard,
Hmm.
maybe even harder on me. And there were times where I was like, man, why are these guys so hard on me? But as I've gotten older, I've realized it was the best thing for me, because as soon as I got let off the hook, it's like what you said, you kind of just you lose it. And you know what? Those guys never let me off the hook. And that's why, I've been who I've been for as long as I have.
Yeah, speaking of Claude, your game developed as you were a member of the Bruins. Some years you fought more than others. Some years you scored more than others. You had 30 goals a year. You won the cup. What kind of conversation did you have with him about like your role and what he wanted from you in terms of fighting and how physical versus being a first line goal scorer? What was that development like?
Uh, it's really funny. There wasn't much conversations, I guess you can say. It was more like coach player, and it wasn't like, and I was a kid. That was the thing too. So it was more like I said, he was on me all the time, and he never, like I said, let me off the hook. And you know what? We never really had any conversations about, okay, I need you to score more, or I need you to fight more, or anything like that. It was more of just being a presence every single night, and bringing that, because a big part of my game has always been being, bringing that emotional part to the game, and and that could be, hitting, fighting, scoring, all that type of stuff. It's just, like I said, just being on my toes, and just bringing that, you know, that fire and that passion every single game. So I think that was more of what he wanted and expected from me. And you know what? If I was just being myself, the fights just come naturally. And yeah, so that was kind of how our relationship was.
All right. So talking about being fiery, I'm going to go to the Montreal series. Everybody was asking on Twitter, what was going on between him and Emilin, him and Dale Weiss, you and Naginla flexing to the bench? What was the reason for that? I know it's the playoffs. You guys played each other a million times during the regular season. There's a rivalry there. What can you give us your side of it? Because we've heard Dale Weiss's side. He's a dirty liar, in my opinion. Well, what happened, Milan? What walk us through that whole kind of soap opera?
That's what it was. And the media did an unbelievable job of making us the villains, especially the Canadian and the Montreal media.
They would
It
never.
was Oh yeah, no, it's shockingly, they made us the villains that we ended up being, and they, like you said, turned it into a soap opera. But you know what? It was just one of those things that was like, Montreal, Boston. It was the fourth time we played in 7 years in the playoffs. Um, it was the second round of the playoffs. For whatever reason, we always had a hard time with them, you know,
Hmm.
and for whatever reason, Carey Price always played his best against us. And yeah, it was just like one of those things. And you know what? We were a tough team. You know this because you played against us. We were a tough team.
Oh
They
yeah.
were not. They were not. They antagonized us, and they played that little rat, just
Hmm.
that fake tough guy, like pretending like they were gonna be tough, but they weren't tough. And you know what I'm trying to
Well,
say.
especially in the playoffs
And
when you know you're not going to fight.
yeah, and you know what? Like, so the movie Wolf of Wall Street came out, and everyone remembers the scene of Matthew McConaughey doing
Yeah.
the pounding his chest.
Hmm.
So I watched the movie, and then I think, and then I scored a goal the night after I watched the movie. It
Hmm.
was like in the season, so I started doing the chest pound, and everyone loved it. So I kept doing it every time I scored. So I had nothing to do. It wasn't at anyone or anything. It was because of the Wolf of Wall Street, Matthew
Yeah.
McConaughey
Did you make the
scene.
noises when you scored too,
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah, yeah. So that was the point of that. And then I remember, like you said, we scores a goal, and he does it towards, like, he. So the thing is like, that's where the soap opera was, where
Uh,
they were making it like I was going at him. I
hmm.
didn't do anything at him. He was irrelevant to me. I didn't
Hmm.
even know who. No disrespect. I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
To be honest, I had no clue who Del Weiss was,
Yeah.
and he was doing what he needed to do to make a name for himself. So he came at me with that BS, pounding his chest, and he was the one that created the soap opera. I wasn't go. Look at. I'm not a guy. I don't chirp
No, you
for a guy
don't.
that plays. I
Hmm.
don't chirp. I don't say nothing unless you really piss me off. I don't
Yeah.
really say much. And so he was coming at me doing his BS. But then, like you said, the soap opera that happened was making it like I was
The
going at
instigator.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, I had to look him up. I didn't even know he was from Alberta. I didn't even know that he was a Western leaguer. He was completely irrelevant to me. And he's
Hmm.
still irrelevant to me. And you know what? And yes, I got overly emotional in the handshake. Listen, I broke my scaphoid in the first period of that game seven.
The what?
I went
Sorry?
into my scaphoid. So
I don't know what that
on my
is.
rib,
Okay.
so like on my it's a bone at the bottom of your thumb. I
Okay.
went into the boards like you like a lot of skateboarders and snowboarders get it when they fall, bracing their fall.
Okay.
So I went to hit Eller, and he turned on me, and I went to brace myself, and I went into the boards palm first.
Hmm.
And anyways, yeah, I broke my scaphoid. So I was angry to begin with, and
Hmm.
then all the other stuff happened, and then I took it out on the handshake line and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it was just like you said, it was just like and the thing was, I was upset because the year before we had lost to Chicago the way that we did.
Hmm.
We're up 2-1. You know, we're going into game seven, Stanley
Yeah.
Cup Finals. All of a sudden, 17 seconds later, boom, we're down 3-2. We lose, and they're raising the Stanley Cup in Boston. The next year, we win the President's Trophy, best team in the league by far. Lose to Montreal, and in my mind, I was really so. It was I guess it was a continuation of losing in 13, losing to Montreal, like you said, the whole soap opera of it, breaking my wrist, And like, so I broke my wrist in the first period and I still played the rest of the game. I didn't even get it x-rayed until the next day. I was like,
Mhm.
I know something's broken. Just tape it up. Let's go. We're finishing the game. So it was just, and yeah, and it was just like a fuel of emotion where it's I'm sure you can tell. I know you're laughing because you can still see that
I
I'm
can
upset
still,
about it.
yeah.
So yeah, because you've played. You only get so many chances to win. You
Yep.
know, and I was lucky enough to win, and you only get so many chances to be on a really good team. So when you have that chance and you don't make the most of it, it hits different. So that's my whole point of all this.
So you were aware of that because you're a young guy still. What are you, like 23 at this point, 24? Did you
I
know
think it
that
was
the
20,
Bruins,
25. Yeah.
yeah, you had something special there. Like this,
Yeah.
you were aware that this is not normal.
I was aware. Yeah. Cause like you have Tuukka Rask in net, you know,
Mm-hmm.
we still had Big Z in his prime. He'll be a Hall of Famer. So you build around that, and then you have all the D men that we had. You have the forwards that you still have Bergeron and Krejci who are
Yeah.
still going,
Mm-hmm.
who are still going,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, like I was saying, we had a Ginla that year who replaced Nathan Horton. Um, who else? We had a bunch of guys
You were
having,
loaded. Yeah.
Torrey Krug, came in. He almost broke Ray Bork's rookie goal scoring record, you know. So, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, when you have something special like that and you don't make the most of it, it just hits different. And
Yeah.
yeah, and not only that, like, don't get me wrong, it's great to be a champion, but just think about how many multiple champions there are from the same team. So
Yeah.
that's a little. Then you hit a different class of champions. So it's like you played in Chicago with those Chicago guys. Those guys that won three, like those guys are legends
No,
for
yeah.
forever.
It's yeah, the Dunks and the Siebesy, those guys. It's a different vibe you get from them. Yeah, like you were on an incredible Bruins team. I agree. You guys left a couple on the table. I'll say that. You guys were so good. You were so incredibly good. Every time we played you, I was like, dang, these guys. And it wasn't one line, it was four
Yeah,
lines, because even Sean's line, you would roll through. I think it was Sean, Campbell, and I can't remember who the third. Hi,
Yeah.
Dan. Like such just a strong. But anyways, let's talk about the Bruins then. Leaving the Bruins. What was that? Did you expect the trade, or was it caught you off guard?
uh, it was. You know what? It was one of those things where I was like, anything could happen. We missed so we missed the playoffs with what 95 points that year. Think about that. We missed the playoffs with 95 points. Um, you know, and then when you miss the playoffs and expectations are high,
Yeah.
uh, you know, anything could happen. And I had a year left on my contract. I had a so-so season, just like everyone else that year.
The 95
um,
points, not so. But
yeah,
yeah.
but anyways, I had a so-so season. It wasn't one of my best seasons as a Bruin, and it just felt like anything could happen. And I wanted to stay. I really did. In my mind, I was going to be a Bruins lifer.
Yeah.
Um, and then a lot of things happened that summer. The GM Peter gets fired, you know, which I didn't truly understand, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But and then my dad passed away, and then a month after that, um, it was, and a month after that, my second daughter was born, and then a month after that, the trade happened. So it was. I
Wow.
remember it was a, it
Wow.
was a, it was a yeah. So like so that all happened simultaneously, a month apart from each other, and obviously, like it's a crazy emotional time because, like I said, you go from losing your father to
Mm-hmm.
having a kid to
Yes.
now, yeah, being traded. And I remember, so now we're living in the world of Twitter. And I remember waking up that morning to go work out. It was a Friday morning, and I was living in Kelowna. And actually, and I don't go on Twitter. And I don't go on Twitter. I don't read what people say. I don't, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
I've just never done that. And, but my wife showed me a tweet from that Elliot Friedman tweeted that morning, Friday morning before I went to the gym. And he goes, a lot of rumbles of Lucic to LA. And in the back of my mind, I was like, listen, I don't want to get traded. I'm hoping to sign an 8-year extension to, like, be a lifetime Bruin.
Yeah.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, but if I get traded to LA, like, who doesn't want to go to LA? Like,
And
Sunshine,
they're coming off
California.
cups, and yeah.
They're coming off winning Stanley Cups and all that type of stuff. So I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, if I do get traded, LA would be a pretty awesome place to go. Like you said, they just won 2 cups. You know, play for Daryl Sutter, all that type of stuff, and get to live in LA. So I was like, if anything like that happens, it would be a pretty cool spot to go to be an LA King. And I was in the back of my mind too. I was like, and I get to play for a team that Wayne Gretzky played for, so that's kind of cool too. And 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 you got to remember, I'm born in 1988, so I have no recollection of him playing for Edmonton. I remember him as a kid
Mm-hmm.
playing for the LA Kings. So yeah, so that was kind of all going through my head. And
Wow.
like I said, there was just like, so I could barely even do my workout because I was just thinking, is this going to go down? And then I think it was like 2, 3 in the afternoon. I eventually, like everyone now, I find out through Twitter first that it
Mm-hmm.
happens. And then it was Dean Lombardi and Mike Fuda that called me. And I think it was Fuda that did do the trade. Uh, you know, Dean gave him the green light to do the trade and then did the trade. And then Don Sweeney called me, and then so did Cam Neely, and and I was an LA King after that. And
Holy
it
moly.
was as a West Coaster, being from Vancouver, it was kind of nice to be back on the West Coast too.
This sort of thing boggles my mind. I get me not getting information from the GM about being traded. I was traded twice.
Yeah.
Totally caught off guard both times. Completely. How is that you, Milan Lucic, you're totally caught off guard? That is crazy to me that you had no idea. Did you have an inclination that off season? Like, okay, I might get dealt, or it's so crazy.
Honestly, like there was, like I said, there was just so much that happened that summer
Yeah.
that I don't even know if I was thinking about hockey
Mm-hmm.
at that time.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, they made a change in management, so I was kind of expecting the unexpected, as that's the world that we live in.
It's a
You expect
business.
the
Yeah.
it is, yeah.
So you go to LA. Yeah, you have a good year personally. You put up some points. Go to the off season. First time dipping your toe in free agency. I don't know how much information you want to give. I was a free agent 6 times. Which is not a good thing if you're listening. It's not a good thing. The most amount of suitors I had, teams dipping their toe in the John Scott water, was 3. How many teams were banging on Milan Lucic's door? 12, 15, 30?
Well, first off,
Okay, let's hear
we
it.
first off, we tried everything we could to stay in LA.
No kidding.
Yeah, I wanted to stay in LA. Obviously, my family wanted to stay in LA. Who doesn't want to live in LA?
Yeah.
In Manhattan, Hermosa Beach, where all the players live. So I think we try to work 3-4 months, you know, it was like endless conversations with us and Dean Lombardi, and literally tried everything to make it work. Uh, but at the end of the day, you know, it just fell through, and
Yeah.
it just didn't work. And then I was like, all right, I guess the LA dream is one season long. So you go to free agency, and at that time, uh, you know, me and Stamkos were, I think, the number 1 and 2 guys going into free agency,
Mm-hmm.
and then because Stamkos wasn't originally going to re-sign with Tampa, so then he did, and then he was off the table, and then, you know, I ended up being all of a sudden the number 1 guy for free agency, which is, you know, it's kind of
That's
cool
cool.
thinking about it. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think. There must have been 12, 13, 14 teams that I talked to. Um, and it's really funny going back to what we talked to. The most serious conversations were with the Montreal Canadiens.
No way.
Yeah, and I talked to Mark Bergevin probably 4 times in depth, and everything was on the table for me to go to Montreal. But at the end of the day, I was like, man, like, I don't know if I could do this,
That's
because
funny.
I was like the I don't know, the Boston faithful might hate me if I do this.
Well, it'd be like Johnny Damon going to the Yankees. They hate him now.
Yeah, exactly. But so that was actually the reason why I didn't sign in Montreal, and they had just made the Weber trade. You know, I was buddies with Weber. I knew Price. I knew Brendan Gallagher. His dad had been my trainer since I was 17 years old.
Wow.
You know, so I was like, there's some connections here. There's some good guys there that I like. You know, it'd be kind of a cool place to go. You know, go back to original 16, all that type of stuff. And but at the end of the day, I just couldn't do it, just because of the whole Boston Bruins Montreal thing, especially the 2004 Dale Weiss thing that we talked about.
Dale
So I
Weiss
could
ruined.
not.
The Canadians are never going to let him enter the
Yeah.
city again. All the fans. That's funny.
Yeah. And actually, I don't even. I think this is the first time I've ever told that story. But other than that, yeah, I had some great. You know what? What was really cool about it is, listen, I had only played for one team
Yeah.
for so long, and then I, you know, got traded to LA, and so being on that one team, same coaching staff, same management staff. So I didn't know a lot of people in the hockey world. I never
Mm-hmm.
played World Juniors. I didn't play Hockey Canada. I didn't play World Championships. You know, for good reasons, because I, you know, made the playoffs. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
World Championships. You know, we call it the tournament for losers. The
Losers.
guys
Yeah.
that don't make that don't make the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
they go to World Champions. But anyway, so I didn't know a lot. I didn't know any GMs. I didn't know, you know, I didn't know a lot of
Yeah.
people. And just having those conversations with GMs, like I said, the 12, 13 GMs that I did, you know, that was a really, you know, cool thing, you know, them getting to pick my brain, me getting to pick their brain. You know, it was a cool learning experience to go through. So I think it was really, I think I'm really lucky to have gone through that and experienced that. And I'm a free agent again this summer. So, you know, we'll see if that happens again.
Did you have a certain like list of teams that you wanted to go to? Because you could have picked your spot, right? Obviously, you had a high salary, but were there teams that you were like, I'd like to go here, 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 and you tell your agent?
Well, you know what, for me, it was obviously who was interested.
Yeah.
You obviously want to go to a team that wants you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then and then and then you want to, like, for me, you know, winning was important as well. And you know, and then you know, you start looking down the depth charts of teams and all that type of stuff. You know, where they're going to be in you know, next
Projecting.
year, where
Yeah.
they're going to be, yeah, where they're going to be in a few years. And actually, that was a big reason why, you know, I went with Edmonton, was because, you know, we were in the same division that year, the year I was in LA, and that was Connor's first season. And I remember he came back from his collarbone injury, and we played him a game in LA. And that was the first time that I saw a player, any player, and I was like, okay, this guy is really effing good.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's not just a little bit good. This guy's like really, really good.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was like,
Ride shotgun to him for 8 years. That sounds good.
exactly. I was like, man, get to play with this guy? Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is generational talent. And this is me just like noticing this, playing against him as an 18-year-old. I was like, riding shotgun, riding this guy's coattails. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This would be unbelievable. And it wasn't just him. You know, you look, they had Leon, you know, they had Nugent Hopkins, who was also a
Mhm.
first round pick. You know, they had some other guys there. And I was
Neil
like, you know, even if I,
Yakupov.
yeah, who got traded that camp when I was there. But anyways, you know, I was like, you know, even if I'm not playing with Connor, you know, I'll get a chance to play with
Yeah.
either Leon or Nugent Hopkins. You know,
Mhm.
there's some really great players on this team. So that's really what went into my decision of going to Edmonton over anything. And but yeah, so those are kind of all the things that I looked at to break it down on why I wanted to go here, there, and all that type of stuff. And obviously, let's not call a spade here. Salary was obviously important as well. I
Yeah.
mean,
Baby's got to
we
eat.
we we only get one chance. We only get one chance to make the money that we can. You know, in you know, playing the professional sport, because we do age out. It's not like running a business where you know, you run a business. If it fails, you can just say, "Oh, all right, I'll just try
Start
another
a new one.
business." It doesn't
Mhm.
really it doesn't really work like that for us.
No, and
So
when you're done, you're not going to do anything.
yeah,
No
nothing,
skills other than hockey.
none, literally none. Yeah,
All right. So you get to Edmonton. First year was good. You played good.
yeah,
Everything's great,
yeah.
you know. And then what happens? It just
You
goes
know,
south
hey,
from there. What happened?
so what's really funny, so the second year I go back, 17,
Mhm.
18. So we have we're having a New Year's party, and I actually was on pace for my best season ever at New Year's, at
Mhm.
Christmas that year. I think I had 27 points in like 34 games or something. So I was on pace for like 70 points that season. And
Yeah.
then the calendar flipped to 2018, and it was like literally like a hex was on me,
Mm.
that, and or maybe my luck just ran out. I don't know, you know. And I like, whatever I did went, like, I couldn't even, goalies would make unbelievable saves on me that I like they used to not make. I remember the one time I had a wide open net and I hit the post. Like
That's
and
funny.
I'm going like, and it wasn't like wide open net like in the slot or top of the circles. I'm talking in the crease. I had a wide open net, and like I've scored over 200 goals in my career. So it's not like I
Uh-huh.
don't know how to score.
Mhm.
It's just like I said, it's just like, it just, everything, I guess my luck just maybe ran out. I don't know. And then I think I scored one goal in the last 50 games, whatever it was. And like I said, I think I had 27 points at Christmas, and I ended off the season with like 34.
Yeah.
So I had, so yeah,
That's
like I
not
said,
good.
it was, no, it's not good. And then it was just like a snowball after that. And then, you know, media starts to get to you, you know, people start saying stuff, you know, you feel like people are looking at you differently, even when you're out for dinner. And then I'm not trying to put any badness on Edmonton, but then, you know, it's cold, you know,
Mhm.
um, it's
No, I was
dark
born there.
out.
So
It's
does
just
that wears on you. It's
it
tough
wears.
because
And
you
then
set this standard, right? Of like, you're a good player and you want to live
yeah,
up to those expectations. What, I don't know. Did that lead to the inevitable transition to Calgary?
yeah. Well, it did. Yeah. Again, uh, GM got fired in Edmonton, and kind of the same situation as Boston. I was like, all right, same thing's probably going to happen this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was actually hoping to get out of Alberta because I did not want to stay close to, I didn't want to stay
Yeah.
close to Edmonton,
Mm-hmm.
and it had nothing to do, it has nothing to do with Alberta. I'm not knocking anything on Alberta.
A
I
fresh
love
start.
Alberta.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get away. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
You just want to like just get away as far as you can. And then my agent Jerry calls me and he goes, "Hey, I think we got something in the works." And I'm all excited. And he's like, "Yeah, it's Calgary." And I'm like, "Really?" Like literally I could drive there from Edmonton. Like, come on. Like, I'm trying to get as far away as possible because, I'm feeling this certain type of way. I'm not feeling good about myself. And this is just like, this is a personal issue. This is like, I'm not feeling good about myself. I didn't like who I was, as a player. I didn't like who I was as a person. I just wanted to get away and I wanted mentally to have a fresh start. So when I
Yeah.
hear Calgary, I'm thinking, okay, I'm really gonna go down the road, and not only that, I'm gonna go play for the rival. like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna accept a trade to the Battle of Alberta. Like, really? But so this happened on a Monday, and then I had like 7 conversations. I talked to Iggy. I talked to my good friend Brian McGrattan. I talked to Brad Tree Living, 4 times. Jeff Ward was one of the assistant coaches who was one of my coaches in Boston. And, you know, it, at the end of the day, I was like, okay, like I said, going into free agency, you want to go to a place that wants you.
Yeah.
And you know what? They really wanted me to go there. And I was like, you know what? These guys really want me to come here. I have a connection with Wardo, even talking to Gio, all that type of stuff. It ended up being, it made sense at the end of the day to, because I had a full no move, so I had to waive my no move to go there.
Yeah.
And looking back at it now, it was one of the best decisions that I made because, like I said, it made me start, liking the person who I was again. It made me start, you know, mentally I was able to get that reset
Yeah.
like I wanted. And yeah, and it's been a really, really good transition for me. And I really like Calgarians. I really love the city of Calgary. Um, you know, it's been really fun being a Flame, and there's still what 32 games left, and I looking really forward to what this group has left because I love where we're in that flaming sea, and like I said, it was the best decision that I could have made for myself.
Well, and you guys are playing not up to expectations, but I've said this year and last year. I love the way you guys are made up. You got kind of all the ingredients to win a Stanley Cup. If there was one team that was made out of the Bruins mold as far as toughness, physicality, playmakers, goaltender, defense, it's the Flames. You guys have everything top to bottom. So I'm excited to see what happens because you're my cup pick. I did it last year. I did it this year. I want to one more tough question, then we'll have some fun. Last year, you guys didn't go as far as you wanted to. You know what happens to 30 teams in the NHL. You make 2 massive moves. Kachuk, Gaudreau. I don't know if you remember that. What's that like in the off season? Your 2 most talented players are gone, and you're just sitting there going, "What are we doing next?" This is before you get Kadri. You don't know if Huberdeau is going to stay or Uyghur. What's going to happen there? What what are you thinking? You're one of the leaders in that room. What's going through your head and all the other guys' head when you lose your assistant captain, your leading score is gone? It's crazy.
200, they're both 100-point guys.
Yeah. Like what's happening in Calgary? Did they burn the city down? Were you up like losing your
Well,
mind?
I was thinking, oh, am I next?
Yeah.
You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
like
Rebuild.
so, yeah. So it kind of went through my mind the same kind of thing that happened, like I said, that summer in Boston and that summer with Edmonton. I was like, all right, it could be one of those summers. Expect the unexpected, you
Mhm.
know. But then, but then Tree did a unbelievable job of making the Huberdeau and Uyghur trade, and then he signs Kadri. So right there, you add a Stanley Cup winner, you add a guy who had 115 points, just like Goudreau did,
Mhm.
Huberdeau did, and then you add a top four D man with Uyghur. So like I said, I think Tree did a really good job of adding, adding from what he lost. And but like I said at the start, I was like, oh wow, like am I next? Like
Yeah.
are they ripping this apart? But then he did a really good job of pulling it back together. And I actually told Tree, I said you had like a Tiger Woods type of summer where you shank your drive in the woods or in the rough, but you scrambled out and made birdie. So like that's why I said I called it his Tiger Woods summer.
That's fun. You did. I like the moves he made. Everybody did. All right, one. I lied. I said that was the last tough one. I want to ask this because Chara and I have an affinity for each other. I've asked him to fight many times. He always turned me down. That's a whole other podcast for a whole other day. Hey, by the way, do you remember cross-checking me in the throat when I was trying to fight Z in Boston along the boards?
I do.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
just about to drop him with him finally, and you come in. I think you were in between us, and you just buckled my larynx, and I couldn't talk for
Sorry.
like a week and a half after that. Thanks a lot,
I'm
Milan.
sorry about that. Yeah, I'm
No, you're
sorry
not.
about that.
No, you're not.
No.
All right. This one. Was there any flames to this smoke about Z, the Vancouver thing, practicing raising the cups? I know BX, he's all saying didn't happen, didn't happen. Did you hear any of this, Jazz?
Of course I heard it.
What is your take on this? Is he
Okay,
lying?
so we used to eat pregame meal on the sixth floor on the restaurant,
Okay.
and we used to be able to see out when. So obviously we're the home team. We pregame skate first, and the next team pregame skates. And so we used to be able to watch the other team's pregame skate as we were eating pregame meal. And before that game six, I don't even know if the Canucks skated or not, but somebody went out and started doing something like that. I don't know if it was. I'm not sure if it was actual players on the team, but I think it might have been Black Aces or something like
Uh,
that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, and maybe they were just screwing around.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
We're gonna do this tonight. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So there was something along the lines of that, and then it led to Ference writing on our whiteboard, nobody raises the cup in our city. And that kind of like, obviously that fired us up. So whatever happened, that's, you know like I said, I don't think it was actually anyone on the team. It might have been a Black Ace or
Oh
somebody
man.
doing something, but it was enough to motivate us.
Yeah.
And for anyone that remembers, we scored 4 goals in the first 10 minutes of that game six, so it did enough
Oh,
to fire us up. And yeah, so and then we walk in and Ference has that written up, and we were just like, all right, let's do this.
who was the guy in that room who was the morale guy in the locker room? Because you guys were such a veteran team. Who was the guy who was like, "Let's go"? Like, you know what I mean?
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say we were a veteran team, but if you actually look back,
I guess
So you
you're
had
veterans now. Yeah, you're not veterans
we're
then.
veteran. Yeah, you got to look. Me and Marshy, we were 23.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have Horton and Bergeron were 26, and Krejci was 25. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's five of your top six forwards were 25 years old and younger.
So who was the
And
guy
then
then?
so we had two guys that had won cups before with Mark Recchi and Sean Thornton, and
Mm-hmm.
they were always kind of our voice of reason. And then, like I said, and Ference was another guy who had been to a cup final with Calgary in '04. And yeah, so they, I wouldn't say they were raw, they weren't raw,
Mm-hmm.
but when they were kind of the guys that said things. And then obviously you have a captain like Big Z, when he says something, it resonates.
Mm-hmm.
And especially being 6'9", 250 pounds, jacked as he is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so like those, and we had our leadership group back then was really great with all those guys. And then we added Chris Kelly from Ottawa.
Oh, that's right.
And,
Mm-hmm.
but also the guys that were kind of the raw guys that were like the funny guys were me and Marshy used to sit beside each other, and we used to just like say, like, this is before the generation now where they play the music all the way up until warm up. I don't know if you were on teams like that, but in Boston, all the TVs and all the music had to be shut off with 45 minutes on the clock before warm up. So that was a part of, like, so guys would talk and guys would get
Yeah.
focused, and there was chit chat, and
Mm-hmm.
you'd say all those things, and me and Marshy were guys that were like always like messing around and saying like the raw stuff, and all that type of stuff, and yeah, we kind of brought that youthness to the room. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great. And you know what, it got us going too, personally.
Oh man,
And yeah, so but the
that's
guys
cool.
that but to what your question is, the guys that would say things to dial us in were definitely Big Z and Recchi and Thornton and Ference. I would say and obviously Bergie. But Bergie, like I said, Bergie was still young at that time too.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, those guys were the guys that when quality was needed and to reel us in and say the right things, it was, like I said, Z, Recchi, Bergie, Thornton, Ference. Those were the guys that were the guys saying those things.
That's cool. All right, Tim, I know you want to. I got one more. This is a fighting show. Who's the toughest? Who's the toughest guy in the NHL right now, other than yourself? Because I just did a list and you were my number one, just so you know. Before we even asked you to be on the show, I think you're number one. But besides you, who's number one?
I would say McDermott.
Just for sheer size.
Yeah, and also being able to take a punch and give a punch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
He can take them, and he can also give them.
yeah.
And size, strength, yeah. So that's, and I know a lot of people like to give it to Reeves, and the only reason why I say McDermott over Reeves is because I've never fought Reeves. So yeah, so that's why I would say McDermott.
Why have you not fought Ryan? What's going on?
We just never have.
Oh, would you entertain that if he said, Milan, let's fight?
I'm not one that usually says no, but so yeah,
We'll see.
we'll see.
We'll leave it. We'll leave it at that. I only turned down 2 fights in my career and I regretted both of them. So there you go. One was Jody Shelley, one was Steve McIntyre. Should have fought them both. Stupid. I'd still be playing if I did, be honest. All right. Tim likes to do a little rapid fire to close up the show. I know your mojito's probably melted. It's now a shake.
The
I'm gonna
ice
let you get out of
yeah,
here.
yeah.
It's done. I'm sorry.
All right, rapid fire question. You played on a lot of great teams. What was your favorite line that you ever played on?
Oh man.
Krejci Horton.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
That's
What
that's
was
an easy one.
Hmm.
your favorite subject in school?
Not PE, so math. I was good at math, surprisingly.
Nice.
Who's been in your career the hardest defenseman to play against?
People always ask me this, and I always gotta like think. You know what? I gotta give it to Hedman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matthews or McDavid?
McDavid, just because he's my buddy.
If they made a movie about your life, what actor would play you?
What's his name? The guy, people say he looks like me, or I look like him.
Jack
The
Black,
Punisher, the Punisher guy.
Oh, John, what's his name? Yeah.
John Hamm.
Yeah,
No.
no, not John Hamm. You know, he's the Punisher. What's his name?
Inglorious
He kind of,
Bastards, yeah.
he kind of walks like me too. He almost has kind of like the same back too.
I've never seen the
John
Punisher.
Bernthal. John Bernthal. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good question.
Who's the most underrated fighter in the league right now?
Delorier.
Agreed.
What if we asked you what your best fight ever? You just show one video. What link are you showing us?
Joel Recklich.
The
Preseason
Wrecker.
fight. Joel Recklich preseason in Boston. He was on Washington. If anyone asks me to show him a fight, that's the one I always show him.
Why that one?
Just watch it.
Huh.
Because
Did you?
he goes lefts and I go rights, and it's just 45 seconds of lefts and rights back and forth.
See, I fought him and he didn't go left.
Well, you're bigger and taller than me and stronger, so he didn't
Bigger and
probably
taller.
want to get
Not
he
strong.
didn't want to get tagged.
What do you bench, Milan? What's your max bench?
See, I'm not, because of my back. My
What's
form-
wrong with your back?
So I have Sherman's disease. It's called. So it's just a spine curvature. It's not actually a disease. It's more of a. So if my spine was straight, I'd be 6'6". So I would be your height.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's the condition that I have.
Okay.
And because of that, it hurts my form of being able to do as much bench as I can. So really the most I've ever benched is like, I don't know, 240, 245.
I bench more than Milan Lucic.
Yes.
My max is
No big deal.
250. No big deal.
My last question. We have a lot of kids that listen to the show. What advice would you give to young kids who want to, improve their game, be a better hockey player?
Fight?
Just you got it's you gotta work at it. And what I tell kids when they ask me for advice, I say you gotta have fun. You gotta find a way to have fun doing the hard things. You gotta enjoy what hurts. You gotta enjoy like that you're tired. You know what I'm saying? That day
Yeah.
that you don't want to do it, you got to dig deep and do it even harder that day. You got to love that your muscles hurt from a hard workout. You got to love being exhausted. You got to love when media is asking you ridiculous questions. You got to love when an annoying fan is flipping you to the bird. You really got to love the stuff that sucks. And that's what I always say. You gotta you gotta enjoy it. You gotta and try everything, And I was always a guy that tried everything to, like I said, to make my game better. You know what? I took boxing up at 15. I did boxing because I wanted to get into better conditioning. And what ended up happening, I was a good boxer, and I ended up having 3 bouts because my boxing coach, Kenny McInnes, wanted me to put me in bouts. What else? I played basketball. I played rugby. I played, you know what I'm saying? Try it
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like you gain other skills doing other things that could help you be a better hockey player. And by doing all, like, lacrosse, playing lacrosse, cradling the ball, that gets your hands going. which can make you a better stick handler with the puck and all that type of stuff. So for me, it's just enjoying it all, trying everything, and just just do it all with a smile on your face, and just be all or nothing with it.
Well, I enjoyed this. I tell you what. I didn't know what to expect, Milan, coming into this. I didn't know you were in Mexico. I thought we were going to have choppy service and it was going to be, I don't know. But this was by far one of the most pleasurable interviews I've ever done. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, this was, Tim, you got to say, this was a blast.
This is great. I'm a Boston guy. I've been watching you since you were wearing 62, those first preseason games. It's been a pleasure.
Man.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So thank you guys.
Milan. Good luck the rest of the year. Say hi to all the guys there. And all the best with you, the wife, the family, the free agency, the rest of the season. It was a blast, my man.
All right. Thank you.
See you later, everybody.